It's Monday, July 7th, 2025, and this is episode 339 of You Can Bet on That. Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. I'm Mark Duvall.
And I'm Dr. Mike.
Dr. Mike, how are things going?
Going pretty well. Nothing unusual.
Yeah?
I'm curious to hear about your trip.
Right. I am back from 360 Vegas vacation, so I'm going to tell you all about that. Gosh, we haven't even talked, so most of this is going to be new to you.
No.
I know you've got some of my show notes here, but I'll fill in some of the blanks. But before I get to that, let's circle back to something we've been talking about the last few episodes, and that is a hand that our friend Melanie was playing, poker, where at Showdown, she showed her cards. The villain mucked. The cards didn't actually hit the muck, but he turned them face down and kind of pushed them towards the dealer. And a friend of his said, no, wait, turn up your cards. And it turns out that Melanie had a pocket pair that had been counterfeited by two higher pair on the board. And it turns out the villain's single king in his whole cards was the best kicker, and he ended up winning the hand. So we've had a lot of, I think, really good discussion about that. Well, Melanie wrote in with some clarification, so let me read her email here. Really enjoyed the episode this week, and you're talking about various points of view about the guy who reverse mucked and won. I had pocket eights, and we were both a little short stacked. I put him all in when he checked the flop of ace-10 ace, no flush draw. So just to kind of set the stage here, she put him all in. She had pocket eights, probably had the best hand at that point, and in fact did. This guy called with king deuce, I believe, for his two cards.
Yeah.
Called and all in.
Not a very good experienced player.
Right. Now, who knows? She says they were short stacked, but whatever.
Yeah, he might have been down to his last few bucks and thought, what the heck?
So he called with what turned out to be king deuce. Then the board paired again on the turn with a 10. He was at seat 1, me seat 4, and his friend was at seat 8 and hadn't seen his cards. So this was more information for us. We just assumed that this friend was sitting behind him, watching him play.
So he was actually a player on the table.
The friend was actually a player at the table. So now there are two aces and two tens on the board, and the river doesn't matter. It was some kind of brick, but Melanie was now either playing the board, if that last card kicker was higher than her eights, or she was playing two pair eights and tens with an 8 kicker, which isn't all that great. All right, so Melanie says that this friend of the villain's, that she was a good player and saw when I turned over my hand that I had been counterfeited. Right? So this friend now sees that Melanie has turned over a counterfeited pair. She sees the villain, her friend, push his cards like he's going to fold. And then she told him to take his cards back and show them, thinking that maybe he would tie or win, even though she had not seen his cards. So this is also different, right? This is not somebody sitting behind him and knowing that his king might be a winning kicker.
Right.
This friend was just saying, show your hand. Right. Again, you may both be playing the board, or you may have a card in your hand that is the better kicker. And that's what it turned out to be. So we got a little more information here. And if you recall, when the floor was called over, they let the villain scoop the pot, but said, hey, one person to a hand, please don't help another player at the table. That's what it had come down to, as opposed to somebody sitting behind. Okay, So Melanie goes on to say, the info that I and the table gained from him, mainly that he called an all in with nothing, right, that king deuce, was super helpful later, and he ended up getting stacked, going all in with an ace-jack and losing. He made multiple newbie mistakes, like the dealer had to remind him several times to put his chips across the line to bet or call. But he was a really nice guy. I kind of felt bad for him because the dealer wasn't always patient with him. I think you're right. Poker needs more players. And while I'm still a novice, I remember being intimidated at the table at first. Now I enjoy it so much. I drive about an hour and a half to get there, and I'm there to relax, banter a bit, have fun, and most of the players are really fun and pleasant. The vibe is super important to me, and it wasn't worth it to me to argue for the pot and be difficult about it. Although I do see your point, talking about you and me, Mike, how, we had said when we first heard it and didn't have all the information, we thought, the pot should have gone to Melanie. So anyway, instead we had a nice guy adding to a good time for a while longer. So some new information. I'm glad Melanie sent us that, and I love the conversation that it generated here on the show and amongst our listeners. And given all this new information, now I'm definitely leaning towards, the pot goes to the villain in this case. And his friend was warned, don't help him in the future. And so.
Right. Yeah. And, whenever friends are on the same table.
Yeah, you've always got to worry about that collusion. And
that's kind of a colluding thing. As a matter of fact, didn't that just happen in the World Series of Poker?
Oh, yeah, big to-do about, final table. Now, again, it's always a concern. It's always worth investigating. It's pretty clear here this wasn't collusion, because in collusion, you don't want to give yourself away. You want to be doing things where they don't know you're working together. And clearly they knew each other, and clearly this player was new.
This was more of an instance of a player who knew what they were doing, helping his buddy who didn't really know what he was doing, and just giving him advice like, turn your hand over.
Yeah.
So, that does put a different light on it.
Yep.
Yeah. What can I say?
Yeah, I think we can close the book on this story, but I love that it generated a lot of good discussion, like I said, and let's move on.
Okay, sounds good, Mark.
All right, before I talk about my trip, one more thing, something that's making headlines the last couple of days here. So this so-called Big Beautiful Bill was recently signed into law, and there's an element to it that is particularly interesting for gamblers. So let's talk about that. First of all, some background. Right now, when you file your taxes, if you have any wins for the year in gambling, you can deduct your losses for the year up to the amount that you won.
Up to the full amount that you won, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can't go in the negative and get a bigger tax deduction, but you can write off everything that you won.
Right. So here's some example. Let's say you won $15,000 in gambling for the year, and you lost $10,000. Well, you can deduct that full $10,000 because it's less than the total amount you won, so that now you only have to pay taxes on the remaining $5,000. Right? You won $15,000, you lost $10,000, you only have to pay taxes on $5,000. Let's go the other way around. Let's say you won $10,000 and you lost $15,000. All right, well, in that case, you can only deduct $10,000 of your losses, right? It can only be up to the amount that you won. And that's fair, I guess. Probably not the best word to use for the IRS, but they don't want you to, like you said, Mike, they don't want you deducting all of your gambling losses, so that you pay less for taxes.
Because it's kind of like, well, I'm going to pay taxes anyway. If I gamble, I might win. If I lose, I get to deduct it off my taxes.
Yeah, right. That's what they don't want.
Not going to happen, right?
So under this new law, gamblers will only be able to deduct 90% of their losses against their winnings. So in that first example, let's say you won $15,000 and you lost $10,000, you'll only be able to deduct $9,000 of your losses.
Right.
90%.
So now you owe $6,000 instead of $5,000. Or you have to pay taxes.
You have to pay taxes on $6,000. Or let's say you won $10,000 and you lost $10,000 for the year. Exactly. You're even for the year. You can only deduct 90% of the losses, so $9,000. You would actually have to pay taxes on $1,000 of your winnings, even though you broke even. Now, this is not going to affect most of us because, dare I say, most of us are losing gamblers. I know I certainly am. It's really going to affect professional gamblers, AP players, professional poker players.
Yeah, professional poker players are the ones that are going to probably be the most affected.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a very fluid kind of a thing. There's already talk about introducing legislation that will undo this part of the new law. So stay tuned. We only bring it up because it's making headlines.
I saw that too.
All right, let's talk about my trip. So I drove there, which I enjoy doing. Driving is relaxing for me as long as there's not a lot of traffic, and I drove on a Saturday. There actually was a fair amount of traffic, but we were all driving, the speed limit or more. There wasn't any backups or anything, just a lot of cars heading there. And I was able to stop off for my Tommy Burger in Barstow, so enjoy that.
Saturday's not a bad day to drive there. Probably the best day overall, seriously, would be Sunday.
To drive there.
To drive there.
Yeah. Maybe, although I think a lot of people do show up on Sunday. If you look at the check-in on a Sunday
from
morning.
LA,
yeah.
Yeah, seniors who are going to be there like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday kind of thing.
Maybe Monday's better. But anyway, Saturday, I was fine. Got there about 4 o'clock, was looking on Discord and saw that some of the group was unofficially meeting in the Arts District. First time I've been to the Arts District near downtown Las Vegas. Love that area. Mike, if you're familiar with the San Diego area, it's kind of like Adams Avenue and that area there with some antique store and, kind of a bohemian feel to it. Real nice down there. No gambling. It's all just, breweries and restaurants and stuff like that.
Shops, stuff like that.
I met up with the gang there. We had a drink at Nevada Brew Works. Mark from 360 Vegas was there and some more listeners. And we were finishing up our drinks, and I was saying, I think I'm going to head back, everybody. I just got into town. I think I'll relax. But I'll walk over to the restaurant next door that you're going to. It was this barbecue. Well, it's like walking into a barbecue place, Mike. I mean, you can't leave. Of course, I was not going to leave.
No, the smell alone will draw you in.
So I stayed and had some ribs with it. It was fine. I enjoyed it. That was basically my first day. I won't necessarily go chronologically here because I want to fill in some information about the specific properties that I went to. But I was staying at Planet Hollywood. That next morning, Sunday morning, I went downstairs, probably about 9 o'clock, $10 tables for craps. So,
nice.
They're still around on the strip. They did.
Yeah, at Planet Hollywood even.
Right, exactly. Now, during the time I was there, they upped it to $15, but of course they grandfathered me in. So I just played $10 the whole time. That was great. Here's some things, Mike. Yeah. You know those TVs that are above the craps tables there? Those TVs have always looked terrible. You know what I mean? The reception, it's just awful. And I mentioned it to the dealers in the pit there. And they said, oh, yeah, those are real old TVs. But I think it's more than that. It almost seems like it's hooked up to a cable, like at the end of a chain of cable attached TVs. Because every single one of them, the screen, even though they're high-def TVs, they're older. It looks terrible.
I remember sitting at a table there trying to watch a football game on an NFL Sunday, and you were almost unable to watch it.
And this was a few years ago, right, Mike?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This was several years ago, and it was so grainy and it looked like back when you and I watched TV in the, late 60s.
Yeah, just analog over an antenna.
Over an antenna. It's all fuzzy, but, that's the way it was, so you dealt with it. But you're thinking in a casino on an NFL Sunday, I can't get good TV. Anyway. So what was their excuse?
Just they said they were old TVs, and I kind of nodded, but I'm thinking that's not all it is. I registered my complaint. The dealers were great as usual. Love the crews at Planet Hollywood. Oh, I don't think I put this in my notes too. I checked out. They moved their poker room, or they redid their poker room, and it now is the floor above the casino. It kind of overlooks the casino. Beautiful new room.
Okay. Yeah. That upper area.
Yeah. I didn't play poker there at all, but I really loved the layout there. It looked like a very comfortable, enjoyable place to play.
Good.
So the regular table had the all small tall and the fire bet, both.
Oh, okay.
Which was nice. That's the regular craps table. Now, this was kind of interesting. I always have $1 on the pass line for the dealers. And, when the pass line wins, they'll pay themselves and take both dollars and thank me. But in this case, the dealer that I had, she took those $2 and then made additional bets for herself and the crew. I thought, oh, okay. Huh. I guess they're allowed to do this. They must be, because she did it quite a few times. She would just place the 6 and 8 or do something or make some hardway bets for herself. I thought, okay, great. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, funny thing about that is, though, I guess they'd have to have some kind of agreement among all the dealers that, hey, we can do that. Because some people would say, no, why gamble the money
That's true, right?
we've already
that's
made?
We're actually going to take a loss in the long run by making more bets on the table. That's a good point. She did this. I don't know what kind of approval she had. The box certainly didn't say anything about it, so
yeah, it must be their rule then. Yeah. Maybe it's just whoever's on the table gets to decide what they want to do.
So that was on the regular table. Now, over at their crapless table, which I did play a good chunk on, they had two different side bets. They had the repeater bet, which we've talked about many times, right? You know what the repeater bet is.
Right.
And they had a side bet called Hardways All Day. Now, I didn't put the rules here because I wanted you to maybe try to guess. What do you think that could be?
Hardways all day. I'm thinking it's like if a shooter makes a certain amount of hardways in his one roll or something.
Yeah, you're pretty close. The bet is very simple. It's just that the shooter will make each of the 4 hardways before a 7. That's it. The hard 4, the hard 6, the hard 8, and the hard 10 before a 7. The easy ways don't matter. Right? It's just that is it.
Just,
you have to roll.
Just making them all.
Yeah, each of the individual ones. So, rolling a hard 4 twice, that still only counts as rolling the hard 4, right?
Right. So, in that bet, though, there's only one way to win, right?
Yes. All 4 hardways have to be rolled.
And one way to lose.
Right.
It seems like there's be a huge house edge on that.
Well, let me give you some specifics on the numbers. When you bet it, they had a $5 minimum and I think like a $25 maximum when I asked about it. The bet pays $165 for 1, and there's a dealer envy that pays $5 for every dollar that players bet.
Okay.
So if you bet $5 and this wins,
they win 25.
They win 25 regardless. You don't have to make a tip for them. It's that envy bet.
Yeah.
All right. So 165 for 1, which is the same as 164 to 1. Anyway, this is a very new bet. I couldn't find much online about it, and the Wizard doesn't even have an analysis of it. So I decided, well, I'll figure out what the house edge is. To figure it out mathematically is actually pretty complicated. You'd think it'd be pretty simple, but there's so many elements involved. Like, it doesn't matter what order they come in, and it doesn't matter if they roll the same hard way twice. So I just ran a simulation just to kind of make it easy. I came up with it being 1 in about 215 attempts. This will hit.
Okay, 215 pays 164.
Yeah. So there you go. And that's about a 23% house edge.
House edge.
Which is similar to like the Firebat. I mean, it's terrible, but it's actually harder to hit than the all.
Oh, yeah, I would say.
Now, when we were there, twice we were 1 hard way away from hitting it. I think both times it was a hard 8. Not that really matters because it's just as hard to roll any of the hard ways, right? It's not like the hard way bet.
36.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I could maybe see it catching on because of how simple it is.
Right.
And they have
I'd put $5 on it every time.
Yeah.
I guess.
They have these lammers that they just put in the hardways area to indicate that, it has been rolled. So it's very simple for them to keep track of. We'll see. It's the only place I saw it. Again, Planet Hollywood. And
yeah, I think that's a bet that would really catch on. Yeah. Now, how crowded was their table? Because they've got to have room for fire bets, and they got to have room for
the all day hardways. The spots for the players, they just threw it in the middle, and the spots they were right there by the box.
Oh, okay.
Like 16 individual places there.
Little spots. People, and then they have 16 individual places for fire bets?
Well, again, this was on the crapless table, so they didn't have the fire bet
on all the
right. They had the crapless table. They had the repeater bet, and you know how that layout goes, kind of in the center, and the hardways. Just those two.
Okay. Yeah, that'll catch on.
So anyway, Planet Hollywood again, one of my favorite places to play, and this time it didn't disappoint either. Later in the day, I went onto Discord and said, hey, what's everybody doing? And I got a response saying, hey, some of us are going over to TI. They've got $10 craps. I said, okay, I'll head on over there. So I walked there. I was actually, at that point, I think I was in Cosmo. So I thought, no, I'll walk over to TI. I didn't have any sunscreen on, so I'll just walk through all the properties to get over there. And of course, that took me like 5 hours. So
yeah, I was going to say that's a ways.
But finally got over to TI. Chris, Alistair, and Brian were there. And sure enough, it was a $10 table. So I went ahead and bought in, and they changed it to a $15 table. But that was okay, because it turned out to be my best session of the whole trip as far as winning goes. Yeah, so I had a winner there. So thank goodness they upped it to 15. We had this surly dealer there, Mike, who, was just kind of loud, stop talking. Why are you guys talking so much? We're trying to play craps here. Oh my God, all these come bets. So he was kind of being fun about it, but you could tell that it was kind of pissing him off how much we were talking about things other than the game. And oh my God, all these come bets. So it was one of those weird situations where, the guy's a jerk. He's trying to pretend he's not a jerk, but ultimately he still is a jerk. But we were tipping him and he was saying thank you for the tip. So as long as we were winning, we were kind of having an okay time with it.
Right. Had you been losing, that would have got a little annoying.
Might not have helped there, but a winning session.
I always get a kick out of people. Do you remember Tim from Harris Rincon?
The player, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And he would complain like, you're not concentrating. You're talking about other stuff and you're not concentrating. And I'm like, but I'm not even rolling. How am I affecting?
I think his exact word was trying. You're not trying.
Trying. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim was a character.
I always get a kick out of it. You're not trying. Oh, I guess you're right. I should really try harder.
So we ended there. I think maybe there were a couple bad rolls. Said, all right, let's call it. I ended up walking back to Planet Hollywood, but I crossed over the other side of the street so I could stop at White Castle. Because again, say what you want about White Castle. We don't have them here. I had a hankering. It's good fast food. Well, good. Let me say this. It's the epitome of fast food. How about that? Right? Just those
there
sliders.
You go.
Okay.
Yeah. The epitome of fast food. I don't know about good.
Yeah, good's maybe not the right word, but it worked out great for me. I got 4 of these cheese sliders and just ate them while I walked back to Planet Hollywood. Relaxed for a little bit and then headed down to the meetup at Downtown Grand. We met there last year for kind of the official first meetup of 360 Vegas Vacation. And we sat down and played some Ultimate Texas Hold'em like we did last year. And I was sitting next to John B. And we were watching as they were dealing. They had an automatic shuffle machine. And there were 2 cut cards, red cut cards, that the dealer used to kind of separate the 5 community cards that would be out there on the board and his own 2 down cards, the dealer's own 2 down cards. And we started watching, and this was pretty interesting, Mike. 2 red cut cards. The dealer would put the deck of 52 cards in the shuffle machine with those 2 cut cards on top. And the Shuffle Master machine was smart enough to spit out the 5 community cards, then the first cut card, then the dealer's 2 cards, and the next cut card. And then everybody else's 2 cards. So we thought that was kind of cool that the machine, was actually placing. All he had to do was put the cut cards on top when he put them in the machine. And then the machine figured out where the cut cards needed to be when they came out.
Interesting. Wonder how that works.
Yeah, I mean, these were special cut cards. They even had, I think, a Shuffle Master logo on them. So who knows? They might have been chipped in such a way, or there's probably a camera inside that can recognize when it's a cut card.
It goes to a different area and then comes out when it's supposed to. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Cool. So things didn't go all that well at Ultimate Texas Hold'em. It was funny. Tony Snyder was there. Last year, it was this wonderful thing that just manifested itself on its own where we played at this Ultimate Texas Hold'em where we were having a good time. We couldn't recreate that joy. So it was kind of like, all right, let's just move on. It was kind of crowded there. So Todd Goddess went out to scout maybe some other casinos. And I won't go into all the details, but we ended up at Circa. Some of us ended up at Golden Gate. There wasn't enough room there for all of us. Some of us ended up at Circa. So I said, I'm going to check my player's card here and see if I've got anything coming. Because it seems like anytime we go to a Derek Stevens property, if I go up and say, hey, do I have anything coming? There's something, that I didn't expect.
There's usually something, yeah.
So I go up the counter, she checks, and she says, oh, yeah, you've got $400 in free play.
Wow.
What? Yeah, the last time I was there, it was in December. I didn't play that much, but $400. But then she says, but it's going to be two $200 bets. It's like, okay, well,
all right.
I'll take what I can get. So it was two $200 slips of paper, and they were not play to you lose. They were one shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they take it and give you $200.
So that makes the expected value on this $400 just $200.
$200, right?
And I really have only 3 outcomes. I lose both bets and I get nothing.
Right.
I win one and lose one and I get $200, or I win both of them and I get $400. So, the variance is quite high on this. So we go up to a craps table at Circa, and I put one of the slips down on the pass line, thinking,
you can only use it on the pass line.
That's what they said. Yeah, I couldn't use it anywhere else at the craps table. I said, okay, fine. So I put it there, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to take full odds, obviously, if I established a point. I'll just pretend like I'm playing, I think it was like a $15 table. I'll pretend like that.
Yeah.
So it turns out I'm rolling, even though we just got up to the table, I'm rolling. So I get it, 7. Winner.
Oh,
it's like, all right.
Nice.
I've got my 200, no matter what happens next. Put the next slip down, roll 7. So there you go.
Wow.
$400.
$400. Nice.
Yeah.
And what did they give you when they paid you?
It was either 2 black chips or 8 green chips. It was real chips.
Okay.
So
real chips, I know, but I just wondered if they'd give you black thinking he'll play the black.
Well, I had already bought in and had some black chips in my rack. So,
so
I don't think it mattered. Yeah, I think they.
Yeah.
And then, after that, I was playing $15 with full 3, 4, 5 times odds. So, unfortunately, the session didn't go very well. We didn't play there that long. Who was also there at the table there was Bogan. Bogan. He shows up at almost every. And somebody pointed out, I was so embarrassed, that the Twitter handle Red318 who had told us about those helicopter rides where you can shoot guns out of them. That's him. That's Bogan. I just never made the connection. So, sorry, Bogan.
I only recognize that from when he's played in our poker tournaments, and he's, Red 318. Right,
he's got the same, on Poker Stars, So I felt like an idiot, still do. But anyway, good to see you, Bogan, as always.
Well, you can't remember everything, Mark.
I don't know. That was it for that Sunday night. The next morning, Monday, Tim Lawson, who was staying at Fontainebleau, I said, Tim, I'm going to come over so we can play on that poolside craps table there at Fontainebleau. Okay, this is going to be a lot of fun. I said, okay, I'm hopping in my car. I'm heading over. So I drive over there. As I'm pulling into the parking garage there at Fontainebleau, Tim texts me and says, sorry, it's closed today. The craps table is closed. It's like, bummer. But I was already there. I said, I'm going to go ahead and check it out. So I went up to the pool area, and just a hint for people who may want to play in this. If you're not staying at the hotel and you go up to the pool area and you say, oh, I just want to gamble, I just want to go to the gambling area, they have to let you in. The law is that gambling has to be available to the public. So the person working there at the pool entrance might not know that. Have them contact somebody else. Somebody will know. So somebody who was at the pool entrance knew that that was the case, and they had a guy kind of escort me over to where the gambling area was. So I got to see it. I love the layout there. It's enclosed. It's a beautiful layout. The table is this kind of sea blue. People have maybe seen pictures of it. It looks like it would be a great place to play. And I asked the pit that was working there, I said, when is it open? He said it's open Thursday through Sunday at 11 a.m. and it goes to about 5:30 p.m. He said, I was talking to your buddy. He was talking about Tim. He said, I'd open the table if I could because I know you want to play. I just don't have the dealers.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Not a surprise. So.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. Yeah. Well, in our casino, Mark, just so you know, we're going to have the same thing, and you will be allowed to go there even if you're not staying at the hotel.
Uh-huh.
You'll be escorted over there, but there will be a hidden electrical current
Mm-hmm.
that if you go out of that area will shock you.
Oh, okay. So if you're like trying to get into the pool area, the actual pool
Right.
area.
Right. You're trying to sneak into the pool to hit on some young girls
Right.
or something, you're going to get shot.
Now, how are the people who are actually in the pool area not shocked?
Well, see, they're in the pool area and they have a special band or something that turns off the shock for them.
Okay. So it's the people in the pool area who have to have the extra like wristband or something
Right.
to prevent
Right.
them getting shocked, not the person
Yeah.
who's stuck in the gambling area.
No, because they're gamblers.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't put up with that stuff.
All right. Another great idea for our casino. Love it. So, my tail between my legs, I headed down to Luxor, where a lot of the festivities were going to happen that night. Played a little bit at a table. There was this young woman who, when the dice got to her, decided to shoot from the don't. Hadn't been playing the don't the whole time, waited till she was the shooter, and then decided to play the don't.
She must know something.
Well, she claimed that, I'm a terrible shooter or something like that. So she shot, she established a point, made her point, shot again, established a point, made another point, and then she kind of laughed. She was very good about it and said, okay, I'm done. Right.
Uh-huh.
So the hand is not over, right? This is still technically her role,
Right.
but it's offered to the next player. So this other gentleman rolled for quite a bit, had a pretty good roll, and then finally sevened out. It was like, okay, good. So now we all said, okay, he gets to roll again, right? Because all he did was finish out her hand.
Her hand.
We've seen this many times, right? And the box said no. And we're like, well, why? Well, because she had completed a game. She had made her point and then said, I'm not going to continue rolling.
Oh, so it's kind of like if you passed, like I pass. Dice are to me, I pass.
Now, okay, I guess I understand that logic, but I've never seen that before.
No.
None of us had ever seen that kind of thing before. And the boxman even said, but I'll let him roll. It's no big deal. So it's like it's a rule there at Luxor. You know, if everybody at the table agrees, oh, yeah, let him roll again. The person whose turn it is next has no problem with it, fine. But I thought that was interesting because our experience has been no matter when the shooter leaves, maybe a don't player, maybe it's somebody who has to catch a plane or whatever, the next person gets to finish out that hand, but then can start a hand on their own. Anyway, thought it was interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
We had a big meetup at Luxor that night. That was great. Saw a lot of people that I've met before, met some new people, probably thought I was meeting somebody I'd never met before, but in fact I had met before, and me and faces, and it's terrible,
right.
So I'm embarrassed as always. And then we played a little bit afterwards. I bought in, we were playing some crapless, and I thought I gave him a certain amount of money, and it was $100, less than what I thought I'd given him. So I said, can you count it again? And the box had no problem with, count it again. Sure enough, they had missed one of the $100 bills when they were counting. So, know how much you're giving them. So you can question them if they make a mistake.
Especially with new bills and they kind of stick together.
Yeah.
I've had that happen many a time, yeah.
Then the final day, Tim and I decided we wanted to go see Durango, which is a new locals casino. Went out there, Stations Casino. Yeah, just a gorgeous new facility. Very bright and open. There are a lot of windows that you can actually see from the casino area. One funny thing is, Tim and I played some video poker at 2 different locations while we were there. Both times, both of us accidentally left our cards in the machine. Stupid. Anyway, apparently Durango is very crowded during the evenings and on weekends to the point where it's hard to find parking. But, we were there in the middle of the day, so it was nice.
And how far out is that off the strip?
Yeah, I mean, it's a drive. It's going to take you like 20, 25 minutes to get out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And since I was out and about, Tim left. He went back to Fontainebleau, I believe, and I decided to check out Green Valley Ranch, which was not terribly close to where I was, but I was out far away from the strip anyway at that point. Why not? Another Stations Casino, also very nice. I would say almost as nice as Durango, but darker. Kind of had that dark motif to it. And it's a little older, too. So
yeah, that's on the way to the dam. We've been there before.
Oh, okay, very good. So really enjoyed seeing that. Didn't play there, but just wanted to check it out. and then head back to the Strip. And then to cap off the trip, Tim said, let's play some Baccarat in the high limit room at Fontainebleau. It is $100, which is more than I'm usually willing to play. But, we were thinking, let's do it. And even though it turned out to be a losing session, and probably my biggest losing session for the trip, we had such a great time there because it's high limit. The dealers are excellent. They're very attentive. The drink service is fantastic. Plus, you're getting real drinks, not watered down drinks.
Right.
I said, the Padres are playing. Can you switch that TV to the Padre game? Absolutely, sir. Chick, it was done. So, yeah, we felt like high rollers, and we were high rollers for a little bit. And our friend Hutch was sitting there watching us play, and he was taking advantage of the free drinks too. So just a great way to end the trip. Again, not a winning session, but really had a good time there. So
that's good. You should have said, excuse me, episode 3 of Star Wars starts in a few minutes. Would you be able to turn it to...
Absolutely, sir. Of course. Hey, they would have accommodated me, I'm sure, right?
Could you get it on TNT on there? Because
that's right. I won't need the closed captioning. I have it memorized.
Right.
But I want to see it.
I would have said Armageddon's starting on...
Yeah, that'd be your thing. Actually, Armageddon's probably streaming somewhere. Can you bring up a streaming service and stream Armageddon for me?
It's always streaming. Best movie ever made.
All right, that's my trip. Oh my gosh, I've gone on and on. But I will say this, Mike.
Sounds like a good time.
This was one of my absolute favorite Las Vegas trips because at every point I would kind of look and think, this is where I want to be. This is what we do. This is Vegas. And just absolutely loved it. Now, it helped that it was a winning trip.
Yes, that definitely helps.
Yeah, I mean, that helps. This is kind of interesting. At the end of the trip, I looked. I had about $400 more in my wallet than I arrived with. So that's everything, gambling, paying for meals, etc. Right. I thought it was interesting that was about the same amount that I won in the free play, that $400.
Right.
So that made the difference in the trip.
Thank you, Derek Stevens.
Yeah. And the drive home was great. Got an early enough start. It was a weekday. Didn't really hit much traffic. So that's my trip.
Nice.
Thanks for listening.
So your next outside of San Diego trip will be Blackhawk?
Blackhawk is the next scheduled one. Again, the dates for that are September 11th through the 14th. And Mike, you said you were going to make some arrangements there. I think you said Lynn's birthday is the 15th, so you're going to get out of there.
So,
but okay.
Yeah, I'll have to leave Sunday morning, so I get home, to be here for Monday.
Yeah.
I'm shooting for being there, all of Saturday, all of Friday, and then maybe get there Thursday night, something like that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Hey, thanks to everyone who's been clicking through our Amazon link. Remember, whenever you're going to buy something through Amazon, and we all do, please go to our page first, youcanbetonthat.com, and click through our Amazon link towards the top of the page. All right, let's see how many voicemails we get to here, because we do have a lot of them. Maybe we'll save some of them for next time. But let's get started with Ryan.
Hey guys, Ryan from Las Vegas. I haven't called in quite a while, but I've been listening to you guys. Great job. I just had a couple things to talk about. The state of the bubble craps, I know, is becoming a huge, huge thing all over YouTube with Bredsky Bluff. I'm sure you guys have seen all that, but it's becoming a thing at the casino where people see it on YouTube and they want to learn how to play. So the other day I was playing on bubble craps and a guy came up and he's like, oh, this is that game on YouTube. I see it all the time. And I'm not too superstitious on the tables, but, he's like, oh, I just wanted to see how it works. So he watches a couple of pushes, and then he's like, well, this is a game where 7 loses, right? And I'm like, yeah. I kind of cringe a little bit, but I'm like, yeah, it's not that big a deal. But, of course, I 7 out, and then I play again, and he keeps watching, and then he's like, but you do lose on a 7 again, right? And then I 7 out, and I'm like, all right, I'm not that superstitious, but this is, starting to bug me a little bit. So I move machines and he comes back over and he pulls up a chair and he's like, well, do you mind if I just watch the rest? And I was like, I'm actually not going to play this anymore. So I cashed out and I didn't play just because it was starting to bug me just a little bit. But I noticed he kind of sat around the machines and was doing it to all the rest of the people. And most of them were saying, you're not supposed to say that. And he didn't seem to get the gist of it. So I just stopped playing there. But going back to Main Street, I have went there quite a few times, but I wanted to tell you a crap story I had over there. I also bet the hard ways. This is kind of the same crap story it sounds like you guys might have. I always bet the hard ways at least 6 and 8 every single time, and I always put $1 for the dealers every single time. Well, a hard 6 hit, and I start cheering, and I'm like, oh, wait, my hard 6 not up there. I have a hard 6 every time. And they're like, no, you didn't have a hard 6 this time. But the dealer's tip was still up there, and they paid themselves on the tip that I gave them. And I said, well, when the hard 6 comes down, don't you guys pull down your dealer tip? And they say, yeah. I'm like, well, isn't that my dealer tip? And they said, yeah. I'm like, so I don't get how there's still a dealer tip up there, but my hard 6 is gone. So anyways, I made a little bit of a stink about it because it was $25 on each hardway, but I eventually just let it go. And then the next time the dice came around, they skipped me because he said I didn't have the right attitude to be shooting. I didn't make that big of a stink about it. I just said, they need a little better management, but I will never play there again. That's a big one. But thanks, guys.
Gosh, what a shame. And, we talked about how we had a bad experience at the craps table there, too. He makes a great point. How can the dealer's tip be out there, but not my bet?
Not my bet.
That's a bad attitude, sir. When the dice get to you, we're just skipping.
First of all, I've never heard anyone get skipped because they have a bad attitude.
Bad attitude, jeez.
I mean, they let every drunk and crazy person shoot. I've never heard that. And second of all, why wouldn't the pit have just said, oh, yeah, if we're out there, you must have been out there too. Must be a mistake or, something to that.
Yeah, and they were kind of blowing him off, kind of the way they blew you off, Mike, when you said, look, I've got a hard way out there every time. How, what happened to it?
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, that is such poor business. That is not the way to run a place.
Yep. Bad word of mouth is going to come out of that. Well, we're bad-mouthing them right here.
Yep. Oh, and if Mark and Dr. Mike say don't go there, people will stop going.
All right, I'm not going to go that far, but that's been our experience. And plus, table games only on weekends.
Yeah, that's another dumb thing.
A shell of its former self. Okay, next call.
Hi, this is Steve from Phoenix. Big fan of the show, and I just wanted to get your opinion on something. I've got a birthday coming up, and I'm planning on going to a new casino that's opened up recently. So I've got one friend, A, that's a bit socially anxious, but wants to get to know another friend of mine, B, better. Now, I'm not trying to play matchmaker. It's more like I'm trying to get them to be friendly and start talking. My idea is to maybe gather them around and play some table games so they have that built-in camaraderie like in craps or roulette or something similar. Do you have any advice on how to guide this experience? Oh, thanks in advance. Hopefully I'll have a trip for you for the Desert Diamond White Tanks here for you soon. Take care.
I was thinking about this, Mike. Tell me what you think. So if they were to go to a craps table and they're not that familiar with the game, it'd be a little overwhelming. It's not really a great environment to maybe start a conversation with somebody you don't know that well if you're trying to figure out the game. Also, with blackjack, yes, there's some socializing there, but again, you don't necessarily win and lose together. I was thinking more if Desert Diamond has some stadium gaming, like maybe where you could sit next to each other and play the exact same blackjack hand. Where you're getting the same cards as the player, so you're going to win and lose together. There's less pressure to, it's time to make my bet. Oh, the dealer wants you to do this. Oh, I forgot, there's less of that pressure, and it's more conducive to just talking. That would be my suggestion if it's available.
Right. Or playing video poker at a bar.
Oh, that's true, too. Yeah, that's a good idea too, Mike. Video poker at a bar. You can order drinks, sit next to each other. You go as slow or fast as you want. That's another great idea.
Yeah, you don't have to hit that thing every second. You just hit, look what I got, and then start talking. We've done that when we've sat there next to each other.
That's good. I think that's a lot better than, say, finding video poker out on the floor or slot machines out on the floor. Because you're usually, even if you're next to each other, it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. It's so much easier at the bar because, for one thing, you're not looking straight ahead. You look down at the machine. So it's easy to turn your head and talk to somebody.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's better than my idea, too. Plus, I don't even know if Desert Diamond has stadium gaming, but they almost certainly do have some bar top video poker. So, yeah. Oh, that's good.
You would
that's
think,
good. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck, Steve. Next call.
Hello, Mark and Dr. Mike. This is Steven from the Central Valley. Just calling to tell you guys, craps is not dead here. A new casino just opened their first craps table. Chachansey Gold Resort and Casino opened a craps table, and it's, as you know, cards, but they have the cards matching with the dice. I asked the pit boss about it, and they said, yeah, we know we're supposed to randomize it, but until someone says them otherwise, they're going to keep it as it is, so come get it while it's still here. Mm-hmm. As you probably know, everyone's green. Those dealers are so green. They're taking money from people's hands. You can see them trying to calculate the bets in their heads before they pay it out. The players are green. They're trying to place their money directly on the place bets. So, and I heard a new bet that I had never heard of, the Buffalo bet. So that was interesting. I think it's like all the Hardways and Big Red, I think. Anyway, just want to let my Central Valley people know, new casino, new craps table at Chachansey. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, the Buffalo bet. I haven't thought about that in a long time. We
used to make that every once
I know.
in a while.
We talked about it on one of our earlier episodes. Yeah, it's all the Hardways and a 7.
And a 7.
Or the Buffalo Yo, that's all the Hardways and 11. So, yeah.
Right. Do you know where that casino is?
It's in Coarse Gold, California, which is about 30 minutes, 45 minutes from Yosemite.
Yeah. So south of Yosemite, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Madera County. So that's where those fires are right now. Huge fire out there. Biggest one in the state in a long time.
Oh, yikes. Well, hopefully everybody's okay. Yeah, the heat is here. So we continue to hear that the Northern California casinos are lining up the cards to correspond with the pips on the dice. So the ace goes in the number 1 spot, the 2 goes in the 2 spot, 3 goes in the 2. So that when you're rolling the dice, it's just like you're playing regular craps.
Yeah.
It started down here at Hamul, and then they got rid of it. And now it's come to Northern California, and it seems to be sticking there. Now, I was out at Hamul last night, and I was asking dealer Sherry about this. Remember, Sherry used to work at Harris, works at Hamul.
Harris.
And I was asking her about it, and she said that when they were doing it at Hamul, she would see a lot of representatives from other casinos kind of scoping it out. And according to her, and again, this is, third-hand information, it sounds like some of the other casinos complained or maybe threatened to report them, something like that. And so Hamul stopped doing it, Pechanga stopped doing it. Maybe up in Northern California, they're just thinking, hey, this works for all of us, right? Let's all do it. And it's not a problem. And for whatever reason, they couldn't agree on that here in the San Diego area. So,
what is wrong with these Southern California Indian casinos? They don't agree on anything with each other.
There definitely is some friction there. But again, this is who knows if this is really what happened?
Well, yeah. I mean, it could not be. But if it is, it's like, come on, just all do it.
Just all do it, yeah. And everybody will benefit. But I guess maybe some of them were afraid that if they did it, it wouldn't be a matter of stop doing that. It'd be a matter of you've got to pay a fine or we're shutting you down or who knows. Again, this is all speculation.
Yeah. Just weird stuff.
Okay. All right. Next up is Jason.
Hey, gentlemen. It's Jason from Michigan. Just wanted to call back and circle back on a story that I called in a while back to your show, debating what to do when you find slips or chips at casinos. You guys have talked about it in a bunch of different scenarios. The reason I called in a while back was I had found a slip at the Golden Nugget in downtown Las Vegas. I called over the service, put on my service light. They came over and they said, why are you calling me over? What do you want me to do with that slip? And having listened to your show for years, I knew you should probably turn it in, and they wanted nothing to do with taking it. So fast forward to last November of last year, we were at our local casino in Michigan called Firekeepers, and my wife found a $220 slip, and she's like, what do I do? I said, well, it's your slip. It's your decision. You do what you want, but here's what happened to me in Las Vegas. And she goes, well, based on that, I'll just go put it in a slot. I'll play it and see what happens. Well, she did, and then we actually ended up winning off that ticket, and we left and thought nothing of it. And just went back for the first time yesterday in June and needed to get some new players cards. And when she went up in line, they pulled her aside. Security came and told her that she owed them $220. She was mortified and embarrassed, but pride was hurt more than anything. I said, babe, no big deal. We'll just pay it. We owe it. It was somebody else's money. And obviously they went and asked for help from security when they lost the ticket, and they were able to track it to you either based on your player's card or cameras or something. So I got a kick out of it. She didn't. But we know now firekeepers, if you find something, turn it in. But if you're at the downtown Las Vegas Golden Nugget, they approach it totally differently. You guys have a great day. I love your podcast. Thanks for all you do.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Yeah. When you find a Tito ticket, a chip, cash in the casino, that's not yours. You should not keep it. And here's an example of them actually keeping track that Jason's wife was the one who used this Tito ticket that wasn't hers. And, when she came back, they asked for the money. So it's pretty standard. I mean, obviously, morally, it's the right thing to do, but legally, it's the right thing to do, too. You don't want to get in trouble. And although Jason's wife, all she had to do was pay it back, we've got worse stories about situations like this.
It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. And, Jason, that Golden Nugget runner that he dealt with, I'm sure she just didn't even know the policy or the rules.
She's probably thinking, I just put that in my pocket. What are you doing?
That's right. I would say our advice to always turn it in applies even if you're playing in the Golden Nugget in downtown Las Vegas. So just to be safe, turn these in. Yeah.
Actually, the last time I was at Diamond Joe, I was walking out and there was a quarter. Now, it was still in the gaming area. I hadn't passed through the turnstile to the outer part. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, a quarter. And then I just kept walking.
Good for you.
I'm not even picking that up.
Hey, there's that story about that woman who took a nickel out of the hopper in a slot machine when they used to deposit coins, and it became this huge lawsuit. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, just leave the money there. All right, let's do one more call, and then we'll save the rest for next time.
Hi, Mark and Dr. Mike. This is Julio from the Bay Area. Just got in from Vegas, so I just want to mention a couple things while they're still fresh on my mind. Overall, good trip. I had a lot of fun. I got to make one of the days for the 360 vacation meet and greet at the Luxor. Had some fun playing craps at the craps table with Mark, so that was good. That was actually cool. Anyways, the two things I wanted to mention was I stayed at Caesar's Palace this time around, and I was surprised that usually if you're a diamond and above, you get 4 drinks per day at their facility. You can go to any bar as long as the drink's under 25. Then you go to Starbucks, the convenience store, get some sodas or waters, whatever. But this time they told me, nope, you got to be 7 stars to get the Starbucks coffee or the sodas at the convenience store. That surprised me because, I don't know why Caesar made that decision, but that was crazy to me that now you have to be 7 stars and above. You could still, as a diamond, get something from the bar, but you just can't go into those convenience stores no more or Starbucks and get a drink. That even crazy because those drinks are under $25. But anyways, that was the one thing. The second thing was craps at Caesars on Tuesday night. They actually had tables for $15. Of course, once the tables got full, then they raised it back up to 25 or 50, depending on what table you were at. But they did have them for 15 for a while. And those craps dealers, they always treat me right. I know a lot of people complain, but they've been there forever. And they had a good time playing there. I usually do. They're pretty cool, at least my experience. But I will tell you, it's something to be said for they know how to move the dice and know your plays and everything. It makes a big difference when you're playing with dealers that know what they're doing as opposed to dealers that are learning or inexperienced. Like the Luxor, don't want to rag on them, but they were a bit slower for my taste. But anyways, I just want to give you guys an update on that, on Caesars. And I had a good time, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.
Yeah, great to see you at 360 Vegas Vacation, Julio.
He makes a good point, though. As much as we joke about the older dealers at Caesars and they're a little surly and whatnot, but boy, they know how to deal.
They certainly know the game.
Oh, yeah, and they know the payouts. I mean, it's going to go quick, and there won't be any problems with payouts or anything like that. Yeah, I think that Caesars is okay. I just like, and sometimes when they're surly, it is kind of fun.
It can be. I guess if
Yeah.
you're winning, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, if you're winning and they're kind of surly, it's like, oh, okay.
But yeah, $15 minimums on a Tuesday night at Caesar's
That's
Palace.
nice.
So, okay, maybe we're seeing some minimums go down a little bit on this strip, small sample size, but there you go.
Maybe, it might just be that they're going out of business really fast.
That
And
could be too, yeah.
that's why they've got to cut off drinks and stuff.
Well, now,
and-
Mike, with the drinks here, so he was talking about getting free drinks, like going to the convenience store there and getting like a soda for free when you're diamond. I don't remember that being an option. Maybe I never knew about it. Like when we were 7 stars, I never tried to do that.
Well, I would give them my card when we went like to convenience store.
Well, I just
before we're going up to the room.
Yeah, I just assumed
And
they were
just
taking our
took my
points off. Yeah, but
Well,
I
they
mean,
were.
okay, but according to Julio here, you
Yeah,
get
you should
free
get
drinks,
free.
right?
Yeah.
Even at Starbucks. So this is news to us. It's too bad that they stopped doing it. There's certainly nothing that I found on the tier level pages that say even 7 stars players get these free beverages, but I don't know.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
But then again, I never really asked. So.
Yeah, right. We didn't know. Well, that's too bad if they've cut that off. But again, Julio does say if you go to the bar,
Right.
you get 4 drinks a day, as long as it's under $25. And, if you're just getting something out of the gun or a soft drink or something, you should be fine.
Right.
All right, well, let's wrap it up. Again, we've got some more calls that we'll get to next time. We want to thank some people for some recurring donations from the guys over at Crap Vegas, from Brian Dancer, from James, from Kurt, and from Jeremy at the Color Up YouTube channel. Thank you for those recurring donations. A listener, Nate, was using one of Jeremy's systems at 360 Vegas Vacation, sort of a regression system after a couple of rolls. And it was working quite nicely for him. We talk about it. No system will make you a winner in the long run. But this regression system wasn't bad. It was, Nate was able to play quite a while using this system. So
One nice thing I want to say about the regression system is it allows you to stay there longer, hopefully getting to that big roll.
yeah, right. We've talked about how that's your goal is to get to that big roll. And as long as there aren't a bunch of immediate 7 outs, yeah, that does help.
That helps a lot, yeah.
So yeah, definitely check out Color Up YouTube channel. A lot of great craps information there. We also got a donation from podcast regular John B. Karma worked last week. Let's do it again. Headed back to Vegas this coming week. This time for a 40th anniversary trip for my parents, Hoover Dam tour, fireworks, and hopefully more Royals. So again, great to see you, John, and good luck on this next trip. Also a donation from listener Todd, quarterly donation. Thank you guys for putting out a great show. Keep it going. Well, thanks again, Todd. And while I was in Las Vegas, I ran into Original Dave. We've met Dave out at Harrah's, Southern California, and in the early days of the podcast, when we were realizing that most of our listeners are named Dave, Dave said, well, I'm the original Dave. So he was at 360 Vegas Vacation, and he gave me $100, Mike, to hand over to you for your school fund. So thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, we hadn't seen Dave in a long time because we used to see him out at RinCon every now and then. That was nice you ran into him.
Yeah, so thank you again.
Yes, thanks, Dave. Really, really appreciate it.
Yep. Hey, at the top of our webpage, you'll find a link to our store where you can buy You Can Bet on That merchandise. Also, you can find a list of all the gambling-related shows coming up on American television at youcanbetonthat.com/TV-listings. And we've got a list of gambling-related movies at youcanbetonthat.com/movies. We'd love to hear from you. Call our voicemail hotline at 951-292-4377. That's 9512-WAGERS.
9512-WAGERS.
Or you can email us at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter at YouCanBetOnThat. And on Facebook at facebook.com/YouCanBetOnThat. Dr. Mike, over to you.
Well, Mark, not much new going on here. I have been having a lot of dreams lately about gambling, probably because I haven't done as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
None that I can remember right now, but it seems like every other night or so I have a good one. Padres we're not going to talk about.
And let's not talk about my sports betting. I think maybe you jinxed it on the last episode talking about how good it is.
It was going so well. And then you've had like 2 or 3 bad days.
Oh, it's been horrible.
But I believe you're still up for the year.
I think so, yes. But I think it's close now, but yeah.
Yeah. You're in a slump like
It happens, right? Gambling humbles you. You think you're doing great, yeah.
And the only way to get through a slump is to power through.
Yeah, you got to keep doing it.
You just got to keep doing it. You got to power through.
Maybe take a break. I don't want, I want to be honest here. We all have slumps. Sometimes it does emotionally help to take a break.
It's like when the manager sits you down for a game or something because you haven't been hitting too well. And then, 1 or 2 games, then they put you back in the lineup. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you just need to keep hitting. They'll drop eventually, right?
Yep.
That's what they always say. They'll drop eventually. He's just having some bad luck. So that's it for me. Not much going on. We're going to be going on a trip here in a few weeks.
We'll talk about that next time and how that might affect our podcast schedule.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, if it works out, it might not affect it too much.
No, I don't think it'll be bad. Yeah. So,
it might just
we'll
be
talk about that next time. So,
a couple of days. Yep. Get back, and then my good friend Paul is coming to visit.
Good.
And he'll be here for a few weeks, Mark. So Paul and I will be doing whatever.
Good.
Probably going fishing a lot.
Oh, good.
And then right after Paul leaves, my mom and sister and brother-in-law come out for a week. And then after that, school starts.
Oh, okay. And nestled in there is Blackhawk, right?
School starts, and then Blackhawk comes up 2 weeks.
Okay, very good.
And I'll have to tell them I'll be missing. I'll have to make some excuse. I've got a very important family get-together.
Yeah, family or health issue, something like that. Yeah.
Or I could just tell them, look, I'm just doing research.
Which won't be a lie.
Which won't be a lie, yeah.
Yeah, how many hardways can I hit?
Yeah, I got to keep track and see if I can hit all 4 hardways and eat in one roll.
All right, we'll talk again in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.
Good night.
I'm so excited! Did you see the ring? Oh my God. I can't wait to tell my parents I'm marrying a doctor.
He's a dentist.
But it doesn't matter. The invitation will still read Dr. and Mrs. What's his last name?